Just like with any skill, right? We're not born with it. It takes a lot of practice and failure and retrying. I've been at Google 12 years. And I will say, and I'm going to be honest here, for 6 out of those 12 years, I was not managing up. I was sort of, as an analogy, right? Like not managing up is just being in the passenger seat and letting somebody else drive the car of your career, the car of your dreams and your goal. You're just along for the ride. You're not controlling anything.
Welcome to Latinx in Power, a podcast hosted by Thaisa Fernandes.
Welcome to Latinx in Power. Today we are talking with Nic Miranda. Nic Miranda is an engineering program manager at Google Cloud, dedicated to empowering Google users to work faster, smarter, and more securely. He holds a Bachelor of Business Administration from the University of North Texas and an MBA in Corporate Strategy and Data Analytics from the Quantic School of Business and Technology. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's so great to finally be doing this. We've been looking forward to it for so many weeks. I've been putting it off. I'm sorry. But it's
For
great
years?
to really be having this conversation for years. No, not that bad. I mean, no, I have been looking forward to this conversation, and I'm like really excited to dive into these topics. And thanks for having me, honestly.
I'm totally joking. It's not been years, maybe a year or 6 months.
Probably a year. Yeah, I think a year. You're right. But yeah, I'm so excited to be a part of this podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much for accepting my invite. And in this episode, Nic will discuss the impact of his cultural background on his work and leadership, the importance of mentorship and the concept of managing up, and its difference from traditional management. He also offers advice for newcomers in the professional world. First things first, what does it mean to be a Latino for you?
Yeah, it is, I'll be honest, right? It's a very complicated subject for me. So, you know, I'm the son of Argentinian and Cuban immigrants. They immigrated to Texas, and I would say from the age of 5, right? Like Spanish is my first language, but being in Dallas, Texas, there was a sort of like need to assimilate to like the North American way and the culture. And, those principles. So like during my formative years in Texas, I will say I didn't grow up in the most tolerant neighborhood. And so I had an accent, right? I would probably make mistakes in my English. And there was a lot of like, people who would say, speak English and like, you're in America, right? And so my accent over time dropped. And I think another thing that sort of dropped too, right, was this like connection to my Latino and cultural roots. Even though when I got home from school, only Spanish was spoken in my home and we would be eating like Cuban food and it was great. But when it came to needing to perform and succeed at school and in business, I almost had to put on like this mask and sort of mute this Latino side of me, for so long. So what does it mean to be Latino for me? It's complicated, but honestly, I think it's still having that like really deep connection with my community and my family, trying to get to know people at a personal level. Like, you and I have been talking for so long, and bringing like the beautiful things about our culture and even like turning this whole thing on its head, right? Like now I've had time to reflect and grow. And now I really take what I love most about being a Latino into the workplace now. And I really try to focus on these things instead of really hiding it. So, right, like at Google, where I am there's this big push that they call like bring your whole self to work. And I've been involved now with a few of the ERGs at Google, and one of them is called Hola, which is just, Latino Googlers. And I've been trying to involve myself more, especially in Boulder, Colorado is not like the most Latino heavy community, just to really show like all the beautiful aspects of our culture, and getting involved and giving back. Like there's a program called Code Next where Google will go into really underserved communities, and they will build out computer science labs and programs and really take high school students and provide them with the tools, the knowledge, the skills to become computer engineers or get into the computer science field. And I've been participating in that for the past 4 years. And that's, because I wanted to see us grow and I want to see us have more impact and to take up space in these organizations. And I think it really starts, when I look back at like my younger self, I want to do the things that I think I needed then, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, that's what it means to be Latino for me. It's a bit of a mixed bag, but I think I'm embracing it more these days that that I feel like now I have more of the psychological safety to be myself. No one's going to judge me. But I think, you know, 30 years ago, that was not the case. Um, and so I'm almost relearning how to be Latino. If that makes sense. Does
Yeah,
that answer? Yeah, that's kind of what it means.
I think this is the perfect answer. Thank you so much for being open. And as you just asked, what being Latino means, I think it means a lot of different things. And we are this huge area with so many countries, so many languages besides Spanish. So there's multiple ways of being
Yeah,
Latino, I feel. And I feel
yeah,
also a lot of people they like to tell us what you're supposed to do and feel because you're a Latino, but I don't think no one should tell you what it is because you are the person who knows. And especially because we are so diverse and we hear some pieces of it, right? It's just like I'm a small portion of us. It's out there, especially in the media. So it's just there's multiple ways of doing. So you gave the perfect answer.
I couldn't have said it better. Absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like I think we're really a magical group of people. We, not to say others are not, right? Like I think though we can bring different perspectives. And you're right. I mean, Latinos, it ranges so much, and I love that about us, right? Like I love the differences even just from Brazilians to Colombians and Mexican. Like I love everyone's backgrounds and their approach to life. And what I see at Google too, is this diversity of Latinos that, I can see that, we're something like 5% of Google, by the way. I think
Oh,
is the last metric I saw. I,
which is
you know,
a good number. I think it's not good, but compared to the other companies, I think
yeah.
the other like the norm, like the median, whatever, is like 3%. So five,
Oh,
it looks a lot, but it's not. But
okay.
you know,
I'm still not satisfied, but
yeah, I'm
I
not. I'm
like,
not. Yes.
I know, but I think I can see where even this 5% is like striving to change things, right? And like build representation, but also just like add our own flavor to how we do things at the company. Um, but at the same time, and we'll get into this later in the interview, I can also see where a lot of our cultural norms and upbringings can like get in our way in the business setting because I mentor quite a few Googlers, especially in Latino and Latino Googlers, and I see this come up all the time. So yeah, Maybe like let's talk about that more for sure.
Yes. Tell me, how has your cultural background influenced your approach to your work and leadership style?
Yeah. So, working at Google, I work with so many like like very analytical people, people who just kind of get down to business and it's all about business and work. But we spend so much time at work, right? When you really think about breaking down our lives in terms of like how much time we're asleep, how much time we're not at work, and how much time we're at work, we're spending 40 plus hours with these people. And I noticed that like most of us don't take the time to actually get to know our colleagues. And so, like, how has my cultural background influenced my approach? Growing up, you know, I had lots of aunts and uncles who would drop by all the time, right? And you know, Cubans will just make coffee and you have to sit and just talk. And right, I'd be like 9 years old and my uncles would just be talking and talking. And I think I was probably a little annoyed back then, but I think it taught me to like really be able to sit and listen to someone and pay attention and not be distracted and be very present with what they're saying. And in terms of my approach to work and leadership, like I do take the time to peel the layers and really get to know the person inside and out. Because at the end of the day, right, like we're a team. We need to know each other's strengths and opportunity areas. And like there's so much going on in people's lives that's not work that we want to support or, you know, strengthen. Um, one example, I think it catches people by surprise, honestly, is this is how my brain works. They'll mention something once, right? Like, oh, my daughter is, studying dentistry at the University of Michigan, and I'm so excited because that was her like top choice school and this and that. For some reason, it just goes bloop, just sticks into my head. And weeks and weeks later, I'll see that same person. And I'll say, hey, Brett, how's your daughter doing? How's dentistry school? And he'll just be shocked. Like, how do you remember this, right? I guess sometimes they're like a little like, whoa, dude, what are you? But you know, but now every time he sees me in the hallway, it's like, hey, Nick, how are you? How's your daughter? How's your family? And right, like, especially when work gets really tough, I think it's the people, right? They either keep us there or push us away. So yeah, in terms of like my leadership style, a lot like my mom, I guess, is like firm but fair, right? I don't like to see people not reach their potential. I am I almost can be like too emotionally invested in my work and the people around me. And I can really struggle internally when I see somebody struggle or not get closer to the goals that they've set for themselves. Um, but I would say, one interesting thing is I really have a big disdain for like hierarchy and like top-down structure. I don't know whether my cultural background influences it or not. Um, Maybe it does, and this is more like a rebellious thing because, I don't want to generalize, but I think for the most part, we're taught to just kind of like listen to our elders and just do what they say. And I think when we get to the topic of managing up, like I feel like this can really hurt us sometimes in the workplace. But I love to debate. Um, I'm willing to hear a really good argument and like update what I believe. And yeah, I'm like extremely flexible. Um, but yeah, I think what else? I'll give you like one quick story and example, and then we can move on. Like, well, actually, like two, which is kind of interesting. I feel like my background prepared me for these moments. So when I was like 22, I was working at this startup. It was like my second week, and my manager at the time, I was like still ramping up. He's like, Nick, just want to let you know I'm resigning, and you're gonna have to kind of take over some aspects of my job. I'm like, wow, okay. And it sounds very like startup life, right? Um, and he said, like, look, our customer support team and our engineering team are based in Russia, right? I'm like, okay. He's like, so we're gonna go get you a visa and you're gonna have to spend some time in Russia. I was like, doing what? And he's like, getting to know your new team. I was like, what? So I'm like, fresh out of college. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, this was not the role I signed up for. And I like arrive in St. Petersburg, Russia, and I open this door, right? And there's like 20 Russian like employees there from Russia. And I feel right, like some folks may have had like a meltdown at that point. But to me, I was so ready and interested in each person, and like I knew nothing about the Russian culture, and I was like dying to learn and get to know them. And like it turned out to be like, pretty successful. And later in my career, when I was at Google, almost a very similar thing happened where my leadership came to me and said, Nick, we need an international presence for the team. We're only in the US, but we need this like sort of follow the sun model where if we have something that goes wrong at, 2 a.m. Pacific, we need somebody to step in and fix it. So do you think you can help with that? It's like, okay. So I like embarked on this journey to build this team, and I ended up building a team comprised of like folks in Ireland, Japan, and India. And again, how does my cultural background influence my approach? I think as the leader of this team, I was able to see everybody's cultural differences, their differences and strengths, right? Like someone in Dublin, Ireland works very differently than somebody in Tokyo, and I was able to like get everybody to see each other and allow them to be themselves on this team. And I think I built a very psychologically safe place for them. And that team was able to thrive. Even after I left that team, it persisted and everybody is just like super successful and doing really well. So I think just to kind of conclude on this question, like open-mindedness, like flexibility, and being open to understanding each person at an individual level, I think that sums it up for me.
Yeah, incredible. I love your overview and how the sense of everything kind of being full circle. You learn something at a very early age, or your culture, that's something that is always kind of like helps you, and then you're going to use the same skill and develop and improve whatever you're doing. So I love that, especially for the folks thinking about transitioning their careers, that they might think, oh, I was doing X and now I'm going to do this new thing, and this work that I did that's like X is going to be like a waste, or like, no, you actually
No.
can use this whatever skill you had in this new job and this new role you wanted to perform. So I love that you gave examples of that. So that was super cool.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's all about mindset. As
Yeah.
cliche as it is, right? Like if you look at the glass as half empty all the time, you're not going to approach new challenges and opportunities in a way that is just going to build on your experience. If everything is like a challenge and a tragedy, I think, to your point, we need to put on different lenses and look at that experience in a different way and say, like, well, what are the positive things that came out of that, right? Like, one real quick thing is like, I worked a lot of jobs. I mean, my friends and family and my wife especially make fun of me because you can name some kind of job, I've done it. Like I sold men's suits when I was like 15. Um, I worked at restaurants, grocery stores, and tying it back to what you said, I could go back and look at that stuff as like, oh, I had to mop toilets. Oh, I had to like find mismatched suits and shoes. But I think it taught me a lot of valuable skills. It also taught me what I didn't want to do. It pushed me to the next thing because I knew I didn't want to do that thing. Um, so yeah, 100%.
Amazing. Nick, can you
Yeah,
share with us and define what is managing up? What does this mean? I don't see a lot of people talking about it, so I'm very excited with our conversation and
yeah,
why it is important in a professional setting.
yes. Okay. Yes, I'm so happy to get into this. So it's a skill, and I just want to be upfront and transparent with everyone, right? Just like with any skill, right? We're not born with it. It takes a lot of practice and failure and retrying. I've been at Google 12 years. And I will say, and I'm going to be honest here, for 6 out of those 12 years, I was not managing up. I was sort of, right, as an analogy, right, like not managing up is just being in the passenger seat and letting somebody else drive the car of your career, the car of your dreams and your goal. You're just along for the ride. You're not controlling anything. And so I noticed that colleagues who started at the same time, who were probably equally talented, were getting promoted faster, right? Why? They were telling their manager what they needed. They were being very assertive. They didn't rock, they rocked the boat. They took risks. So to me, managing up is really like extremely strategic. Um, it's a strategic approach to like building and fostering these relationships. And not only just between you and your manager, but your skip level, the people around you. And I know I'm mostly talking about a business context, but this could be at school if you're a student, with your professor, dean, other extracurriculars or communities. Um, yeah, in any context, really, managing up is such an important skill to build. So, there's really like three key things. I mean, there's a lot more, but I'll just get into these three. So, there's this concept of like owning your career and like aligning strategically with what's going on in your organization. At a micro level, like what's going on your team, and at a macro level, like what's going on organization wide. And I feel like if you do not understand what's going on, if you're disconnected with the problems your company is facing, um, the problems your manager's facing, you aren't really going to see the success that you want to see because you have to align your time and energy to those same objectives. And so managing up, I'll give you an example of managing up. I recently transitioned teams and I got a new manager. And along with that, I had a lot of projects that I had been supporting for like a year. But then I was given this like pretty critical AI project. And at one point, it became very clear that I could not do it all. Right. So I had to sit down and actually create like a stack rank for my manager and say, I'm doing A, B, C, D. I know that when I look at our strategic priorities as an organization, this project aligns most closely with them. So if you agree, I think I need to get rid of these other three, right? That's such a tough conversation to have. I think most folks will try to do it all. And by doing it all, by saying yes to everything, we're not giving the biggest strategic priority, like the time and attention it needs, not only for the business, for ourselves. So that's the first thing. The second is relationship building, right? Like, I know not everywhere is Google, okay? And so, like, I might be living in a bit of a bubble, but I think, like, our leaders are people too, and they make mistakes. I think one thing where Latino culture, and again, I'm generalizing, can get in our way sometimes is just like not questioning authority, listening to our elders, respect your elders. You know, they're right. Even if you think they're not right, they're right. And I think when it comes to the workplace, we can have a big problem taking up space and pushing back on someone who we feel like has all the knowledge, right? Like this Wizard of Oz like figure where they're like, how could we ever question them? Like they got to director or VP, like they know everything. No, I think relationship building is pushing on them and allowing them to push on you. It goes both ways. So if your manager, you know, is being unreasonable or is just throwing too much on your plate, you cannot just accept it. I mean, you have to have a conversation like the one I described. So asking for what you want. Um, One of my favorite quotes from my coach is like, you can't be a martyr and complain about it, right? Like you can't just complain all the time, but also just like, you know, be a victim about everything. You have to take the initiative and have the hard conversations, which takes me to the last point, right? So like taking initiative and really anticipating needs. Working in like the traditional sense and not managing up, okay? Pug, hello. Hi. Yes. Oh my God. I just want to go through the screen and hug him.
Sorry. Sorry. He was
Don't be
walking and I was like,
sorry. Are you kidding me? No, I love it. I love talking about managing up and seeing his little pug face. So like if you're constantly reactive and if you're just waiting to be told what to do, you're not managing up, right? Managing up means constantly looking at where you spend your time and your energy and making sure it aligns. And really, it's about being proactive. If you spot an opportunity to have impact, take the initiative, go do it, go put together a proposal, stop waiting for the perfect time, like just do it, ask for forgiveness, right? Your manager and your manager's manager will be so impressed that you didn't wait to be told what to do, you just went for it. That I think when it comes to growing in your role in the organization, going for promotion, right? Those are the things that are going to stand out to them. Oh, you know, Nick spotted this problem we didn't even know. And in this meeting, in our one-on-one or whatever, he came prepared with a proposal to solve it. Is much different than, oh, there's this problem. Oh, this person sucks to work with. I hate this project I'm on. Or this is so inefficient. This process is broken. It's a much different conversation, right? Because then your manager's kind of like, okay, you know, let's sit down together and build out a plan. I think real leadership comes from just being vulnerable enough to try tackling this your own way. So take the initiative for real. Yeah, I mean that's like my perspective on managing up. To just kind of close on it and summarize, like, don't be so beholden to hierarchy and like top down. You know, you want to ask for a raise, go ask for the raise, right? Like your manager has asked for a raise. They know what it's like, right? You're overloaded, your plate is too full. Create a list, stack rank the things you're working on by impact and time, and go to your manager and say, like, this does not have to be personal. It can be very objective and say, like, I have written out all of the work I'm doing, and I feel that I could have more impact if I focus more time on this and less time on that. They will understand. And just like have the hard conversation sometime, right? Like, I feel like every time a really important project or opportunity comes along, I feel as though I'm not, first in line for these. Can we talk more about why I'm feeling this way? Like, is there something I can be doing differently? Can I be growing in a different way? Um, so yeah, I think not having an ego will serve you. Being completely willing to shed the person you were yesterday and become somebody new today and tomorrow, to get closer to the goals. Like you have to be open to listening to and asking for that feedback, and then following up on how you are working on those things. So that's managing up to me.
Mhm. I love everything you said, especially because it relates a lot for us. I feel our community, the Latino community, but also a lot of immigrants, a lot of
Yeah,
minority groups, and also I think it comes to our cultural background that might be more hierarchical.
yeah,
Perhaps you are in this new country that you feel behind. So you compare yourself to the native folks, and you have the sense where you need to work a lot all the time, no matter what is happening. But at the same time, the person, your manager, might not know what you're struggling with, or even like whatever is happening in your life, right? For example,
yeah,
if you're sick and you're working, even though you're feeling sick, but no one knows you're sick, like what's the point? And I feel like now I used to be this person who used to work no matter what was happening in my life. I was sick, whatever, and no
yeah,
one knew what was happening with me. And I noticed that now, if you say to someone, "Oh, we talked about doing this. I'm actually not feeling well today. I'm going to work on this tomorrow and share with you by end of week." Okay, okay, that's it. Or no, we actually need to prioritize. Maybe there's someone else that can start working on that. Are you okay with this? So I feel like people really appreciate understanding what is happening with you and your priorities and your personal life and your health than just
yeah,
like doing the work,
yeah.
so I love your examples as well. And I wanted to ask you, how does managing up differ from traditional management or leadership roles? I think we could notice how different it is, but I was wondering if you can like point some specific things.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do want to zoom in on like what you said, and like just to me when I hear traditional management and leadership roles, it's very much like you're in your lane, I'm in my lane. You're my boss, I'm your direct. I don't really want to get to know you. You don't really have to get to know me. We're just here to do the job. But I think one thing we haven't talked a lot about is like trust. I think being vulnerable about struggle and where you want to improve, and having that open door policy with your manager to say like, hey, I want to be clear, like I know that I want to build my communication skills. I want to build my influence without authority. So when you see that I'm not delivering there or I could do a better job, you have my permission to please just give me that feedback in a constructive, respectful way. And if you're sick and you can't work or like these, by not speaking up and being transparent, I think we degrade trust. And this goes both ways. Like for the leaders out there, for managers, you have to show your vulnerability to your people and that you're not some infallible superhero. They need to know when you're struggling with things. They need to know when, the why behind some of the decisions you make, because that builds trust, even if it's something they don't want to hear, right? They will respect you if you're just upfront with them, right? Like we were talking a little bit before the call about, sometimes people can be so scripted and rigid, and how we don't feel like much of a connection when people are that way, right? I think sometimes Latinos, right, we wear our like emotions on our sleeves and we can sometimes find it really hard to like hide our body language and emotion when we just feel frustrated or whatever it is. And yeah, I think managing up is just really taking this leap and being extremely vulnerable with the people around you. Um, and letting them know too that you're going to push back on them from time to time. You're going to challenge the status quo. Sometimes you're going to disagree, and they need to be prepared for that. Managing up is, again, it's being the squeaky wheel, it's rocking the boat, it's taking up space, it's asking for what you need, and it's calling things out when they don't seem right. I think too often we just kind of want to be, all the way in the back, kind of invisible, accepting things as they are, not rocking the boat, not asking for the raise, not pushing for the promotion. And then we wonder why, right? Years later, we're so unhappy and frustrated with our situation. So managing up is being in the driver's seat, not being in the passenger seat, really taking control and like going after what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Incredible. And also, I wanted to share something. You said that uh, having this open conversation where you disagree and then you try to figure out. And also, I feel sometimes you also disagree, but you commit, right?
Yeah.
Because not all cases you are all going to agree and have an anonymous vote and like move forward with the project, whatever. Sometimes you or a group of people say, I don't think this is a good idea, but then the team thinks, okay, we are ready to test and see how this goes. Okay, let's do it. And I think this is also important to keep in mind. I don't see a lot of people talking about this sense of like, okay, disagree and commit, because
Yeah.
sometimes I hate when there's this person or a group of people where they don't agree, they don't think it's a good idea, but maybe they don't say it, but maybe they are the person who, when something happens, they are like the first one to say, oh, I never thought it was a great idea. And I think this is really hard, right? Because
Yeah.
things are going to go wrong, but you as a team need to be able to work together to fix it. And having this person, oh, I never thought it was a good idea, it's not helpful. And sometimes you
It's
need
not.
to disagree and commit.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. Disagree and commit is so critical. And I know it varies. I know you and I work. I know, I'm in Colorado now, but I was in the Valley for like 7 years. And I know the culture there is different, right? And it's almost invited, right? Like disagree and commit. I'm in steering committees now where there's philosophical banter and like, no, we shouldn't do it that way. But by the end of that 30 minutes, there's no loose ends, right? We have had our disagreements, but we're committing to what's happening next. We cannot leave those meetings with these questions floating around. But I do understand like people who work in government or in other industries, disagree and commit might be like a bit of a different like topic, but I think the spirit of it still makes a lot of sense, right? Like, but I think going back to your example of this person who after, right, everybody battled it out and they're like, I never liked this idea anyway. I think they should take a hard look at. I think there's always an opportunity to like introspect and analyze our behavior and like, what are you trying to protect, right? It's very easy to come at the end and say, I never thought that was a good idea. Than to be there in the moment, speaking up. And I think, our thoughts and feelings influence our behaviors and actions. And so if we work backwards from the action back to the thoughts and the feelings, why did this person speak up at the end? What thoughts and feelings were they trying to avoid? Embarrassment, things like that. I think this is where I think vulnerability comes in. And I know we're going to talk about like resources and advice, but and maybe, yeah, let's get into that because I feel like I have some thoughts there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you brought a really good point that some industries might see this in a different way. As we know, like tech has the sense of maybe influenced by agile, where we are like, okay, we are working something new, was never done before. We cannot predict the future, so let's base our planning in previous work. So as we learn, we can achieve more, but also bring in the sense we are going to fail. So let's fail fast so we can learn and improve as we go. But other industries don't think this way. And I think for
Yeah.
some folks, it might be difficult to think about that. I'm glad you brought that point. So thank you for that. And talking about advice, what advice would you give for folks who are new to a company or new in their role?
Yeah. Ah. So like how do I put this? Like you never get to be new again, right? So to this role or to this company. So you have to leverage the fact that you're new and set up time with your stakeholders and ask all the questions. Show like thoughtfulness, of course, right? Like I think one of my pet peeves is people who didn't do just like even the most minimal amount of research, right? Like I think there's this balance that has to be struck between, I'm not going to bother anyone. I'm just going to go heads down and like read all the documentation and just learn it on my own versus showing up and having done none of your homework and asking these people basic questions. I think people appreciate when, if you're new, you have some baseline understanding of how the organization is structured, what problems it's facing, um, like what impact you think you can have in your role. But then just like bombard them with the questions. Because I think what's going to be tough, right? I think a struggle, maybe this is just me. You tell me if you've ever had to face this, but one thing I struggle with sometimes is like taking up other people's time for something I need. And this goes back to, right, like taking up space, asking for what we want. When I joined, when I was part of this reorg and I got a new manager and a new project and all these things, people came up to me and they're like, have you set up time with so and so? I'm like, I looked at their calendar. It's full. It's crazy. I'm just gonna go learn this on my own. They're like, no, really, you should just set up time. Like you're new. I was like, yeah, you're right. Right? Why not? This is the time. So there's that, and just like be very upfront about what you don't know. I think a lot of us we don't want to appear like incompetent, right? Most of us, if we're struggling with like imposter feelings, we want to put on this like mask and feel like we belong to be here and we like know everything and we're only here as like a formality. But like, no, I mean, don't be shy about admitting what you don't know. Like, honestly, I know a lot of companies right now are in the midst of this like Gen AI explosion. Google, of course, is part of that. I'm working on a Gen AI project myself. When I joined this project, people were throwing these terms around like I had no idea what they were talking about. I'm like, eval and training and like model quality and all these things. And I'm like, what does this mean? And thankfully, by now, I've developed this muscle to just like feel comfortable feeling stupid. And I'm like, I ask like the stupid question. I was like, what does this mean? Right. And I think most of the time, these folks have been so steeped in this for so long, they don't understand that other people are new and might not understand it. And it actually helps them reflect. Right. Um, and I think the last thing is just signal your openness to feedback and be willing to call out when things like you are new, you have a fresh perspective on this team, this organization, and most folks have been just doing something so long, they don't really question the effectiveness of it. So if you're joining and you're like, my onboarding process was a nightmare, I don't know why you had me do this before that. And like in time, you should come back and say, hey, I just wanted to share with you, like, I'm so excited to be here, but like this process to me seems a little broken. I recommend like maybe we do this instead. And I guarantee 99% of folks are just very happy with how things are. And we sort of gloss over some imperfections that you can call out and you can have impact, right? So, but yeah, and I think being open about your communication style and how you like to receive feedback, people don't know you, you're new. But if you come out in that first one-on-one and just say, I just want to let you know, I'm super open to feedback and I'm like really interested in growing in this and that and that. Whenever you feel like you have like some feedback to share with me, just please share it. I'm open to it. Like, as a matter of fact, in my email signature at work, I have a link that goes to a form that says, I would love your feedback. And so everyone is invited to just click it. And I just ask very simple questions like, is there something that I can be doing better? Is there something that I'm doing that you appreciate that I should continue doing? And that's it. And I get that. It notifies me. And I try to follow up with them to say, like, hey, I know, maybe that presentation didn't go as smoothly because I maybe didn't prepare as well. That's good feedback. I'll take more time to prepare in the future and I'll reduce the wordiness of this update. And this is how we grow, right?
That's
So that's
awesome.
that's it. Yeah.
That's a great idea. And thinking about resources, which resource helped you in your journey that you want to share with us today?
Yeah. Okay. First and foremost, get a coach, get a mentor. Um, like honestly, this is so important. Um, somebody who can be very objective with you and tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And you, I would prefer if you found those people within your organization. But if you can't, like, there's a lot of external folks. Like my executive coach, her name is Hillary Dovell, and she's in New York. Um, maybe in like the show notes or something, I can share a link. Um, she's been extremely helpful with helping me sort of discover boundaries and all these other things. And then in terms of books, I really like Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Like it's something I try to reread like every 2 years. It's so good. And then John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership is really good. I'm rereading it right now, actually. He does a great job of not only like sharing leadership concepts, but also like tying it to actual people who've done actual things to like mirror that law. And it's great. And not so much a movie, but like a show that really stands out when it comes to managing up is like the show Chernobyl. If you've ever, I think it was on HBO, and to me, it's like the classic example of like people not being allowed to manage up or talk or speak up when things look off, right? And it can lead to like, in this case, a very catastrophic example. But if we take this mental model and see how not speaking up has like consequences, right? Um, it's a really good lesson to me in like how top-down leadership can fail and how like creating the space for people to manage up can like really up level an organization. So that's it. Yeah.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. We are going to link to the description of this episode, everything you mentioned. And I'm going to leave the last minutes for you to share anything else you want to share and where people can find you.
Yeah. No, thank you again for this and for inviting me. I really love helping others and like being available to share my experience and knowledge. So if folks want to reach out to me and talk about managing up or if they're struggling with a situation, like my email address is Nic, Nic, Miranda, Miranda, at gmail.com. You can find me on LinkedIn under Nic Miranda. I'm not on social media most unfortunately, but yeah, if you want to reach out to me on email and like we can connect on WhatsApp after that, that's fine. Like I'm I'm pretty laid back and open, so like don't feel afraid to email me, whoever you are watching this, right? Like or listening to this. I I will do my best to get back to you and like let's talk. So yeah, I really want to thank you again for having me. Sorry it took so long. It was great. It was a great having this conversation with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.